Okay, everyone. I think it's time to start our today's session. So, hello, everyone. On behalf of the UN Environment Program and the One Planet Network, I would like to give you a really warm welcome to our official launch of the guidelines for providing product sustainability information in an e-commerce setting. My name is Daniela Liebetegger, and I work in the UN Consumer Information and Eco-Labels team, and I will guide you through this webinar today. If Jan Christian, if you could please bring up the presentation. We will start off with the introduction to the consumer information program within the One Planet Network, provided by my colleague and program manager, Niels Heuer. Then we will have Jan Christian Polonia and Johanna Mützel from Adelphi presenting you the new e-commerce guidelines. And we are also really excited to have Maria Carolina Carcion Morales from the Colombian Superintendency for Industry and Commerce, and Maciej Zapoliński from the Polish Office for Competition and Consumer Protection, who will share their views about the new guidelines. And of course, we will finish the webinar with the Q&A session. And please do use the chat to send us your questions, comments, suggestions. If we should not have enough time to answer all the questions today, we will get in touch with you later on. And now I'm handing over to Niels for the introduction.
Yeah, thank you very much, Daniela, and also a warm welcome from me to everyone joining the webinar today. We're very happy to have you and presenting our newest application of the guidelines to the e-commerce sector. As Daniela said, before we go into the topic, I'd just like to give a bit of an introduction of where this work is coming from and the background of the One Planet Network Consumer Information Program. Next slide, please. So basically, the One Planet Network was set up in 2012 as a multi-stakeholder network to build a global movement for sustainable consumption and production, and is operating through 6 different programs, one of them being the Consumer Information Program that I coordinate together with colleagues in Consumers International. Yeah, we have a lot of different stakeholders engaged, over 600 partners, many UN agencies, and also national focal points from most of the governments in the UN system. And basically, yeah, the objective is to accelerate the shift towards more sustainable patterns of consumption and production under the 2030 agenda, implement the Sustainable Development Goal 12, basically on responsible consumption and production. And yeah, the One Planet Network and its partners are kind of the implementation mechanism for that. We also have an annual reporting system attached to the SDG 12. And next slide, please. Now I just give a bit more background on the Consumer Information Program in particular. So our objective in the program is to support the provision of quality information on goods and services and develop effective strategies to engage consumers in sustainable consumption. We also formulated an aspirational target to work towards companies providing credible sustainability information on at least 50% of their products and services at the point of sale. So basically, one of the key issues we see is the greenwashing of sustainability information. So we see that more and more companies are making claims about the sustainability of their products, but not always it's very supported by evidence, or the information is credible, or they don't use third-party verification or other mechanism to ensure the credibility of the information. So that makes it very difficult for the consumer to understand which are the sustainable products and which are just pretending to be, so to say, and that also kind of prevents more sustainable consumption from the consumer side. And that's kind of what we are working on particularly. And one of the key resources that we have developed are the guidelines for providing product sustainability information. Just to the next slide, please. And yeah, this was also done through our network, basically. So in the Consumer Information Program, we have a multi-stakeholder advisory committee and over 100 partners from all across the globe, with whom we develop different outputs to strengthen the credibility of sustainability information, and develop projects or joint events and so on. And we also have 4 different working groups to which we operate. Next slide, please. And one of them is on the guidelines for providing product sustainability information that I mentioned, and that we now also apply to the e-commerce sector in collaboration with the members of this working group and Adelphi, our implementing partner. And as you can see, we also have other topics, but I'll leave that aside for today as the focus is on the guidelines. And then just to finalize, also just to mention that we have a lot of different communication channels that we use to disseminate the work of our partners and the network in general through webinars, events, newsletters, social media, and the website in particular. So later on, you will also find all the relevant information about this project and other activities on the website. And by subscribing to our newsletter, you can also stay up to date. And we also always look for new partners to join the network. So if you're interested, you can contact ciscp@un.org to find out more information. With that, I'm handing over now back to Daniela and Jan Christian for the webinar and on today's topic.
Yeah, thank you very much, Niels. My name is Jan Christian Polania-Giese, and I'm here with my colleague Johanna Mützel, and we're both from Adelphi, and we will do like a quick tour through the guidelines for providing product sustainability information in e-commerce with you. Then it's just so you get a general idea on the guidelines, and then you can dive into those guidelines deeper when they're published. So just a few words about Adelphi. So Adelphi is a leading independent think tank and public policy consultancy. We are based in Berlin, and I keep it here and now go to the topic. So we started this project with the challenge. Thankfully, there was also an interesting publication or information by the European Commission earlier this year, which really led into our topic and is really closely connected to this. The European Commission are doing the so-called website sweeps, where they go through websites and look if they are kind of addressing consumer law and consumer rights in a right way. And this year they did a website sweep on the topic of greenwashing. And what they found out is that 42% of the claims made on websites are exaggerated, false, or deceptive, and could qualify as unfair commercial practices under EU rules. And we took this and formulated this in a more positive way for our project here. So the question that we want to address with those guidelines is, how can we enable sustainable consumer choices in the e-commerce context? And our approach was to develop specific guidance for e-commerce platforms to improve their product-related sustainability information. And we did this together with a multi-stakeholder working group, one from the Consumer Information Program of the One Planet Network that Niels just presented. And the good thing was we did not have to start from scratch. Actually, within those guidelines for providing product sustainability information, which have been already published in 2017, we already found a set of clear principles that address the issue of consumer product sustainability information. So that is like a internationally recognized way of kind of building the framework for product sustainability information. And within this project now, for the e-commerce setting, we first started identifying the status quo of online communication of product sustainability. So we looked at the guidelines that we already had and looked how those principles are reflected in the online shopping world. And based on this, we now developed a set of guidance materials that cover all those 10 principles. I will just give you a quick idea what are those 10 principles on the next slides. And now we're already in the phase of disseminating those findings and disseminating the project outputs online and via webinar and trainings. So you get a rough idea on those basic guidelines. because I think not everyone is aware of them or has looked into them or even works with them. But I'm sure some of you already looked into those. But within those guidelines for providing product sustainability information, I will later in this presentation call them like the general or the basic guidelines to make like the difference to our e-commerce specific guidance. You find 10 principles. You find a set of 5 fundamental principles that kind of provide guidance on how to provide product sustainability information in an effective way. And this so the first set covers the aspect of reliability. So the consumer information on sustainability should be reliable to consumers. It also should be, it must be relevant. It must be clear to consumers. The information must be transparent and it must be accessible. And now we look at the other 5 principles, so the other set, the aspirational principles, and there we are not that strict, but we develop them in a way so that they can kind of lead information providers in a way which is kind of more advanced. But now we are talking about kind of recommendations, so in a way we say should. So the consumer information should cover the 3 dimensions of sustainability. It should reach consumers various different channels in an innovative approach. It should create a longer term impact via behavior change. It also should be based on a collaborative approach, and it should allow consumers to also compare the sustainability information. So compare different products and according to their sustainability performance. But now what we did within this project was to develop specific guidance for the e-commerce context. So we looked at all the 10 principles and then developed those 2 pages where we looked at the obstacles, where we provided guidance how you could ensure such a principle in the online shopping world, and we also provided some good examples. I already mentioned, so we did research and we also did a couple of interviews with our target group, namely the e-commerce platforms. So we conducted 9 interviews with Amazon, Adeo, Farfetch, Jumia, Avocado Store, Philips, which is also a member of our working group, and with Rakuten and Zalando. And what came out as a synthesis from those interviews, amongst other things, is that they were aware, and that's also kind of reflected in our research, that customers want more and more sustainability information at hand when they do their online shopping or their online consumption. What we also found out is that most of the interview partners already address this issue and run pilot phases regarding the provision of sustainability information or have something prepared and will soon launch it. But when we looked at how they do it, we saw huge differences with respect to the reliability of the sustainability information and also the topics that they selected. So some of them focused more on sustainability issues with regards to the environmental pillar, others more to the ethical pillar, or also others more to certain areas like climate or water and things like that. But what they all wanted is that the information or the way the sustainability information is created is standardized. And now with this guidance that we provided, we deliver the first step for a standardization. So we are not providing an ISO standard or something like this, but really the first step where we kind of synthesized the information that we found with regards to product sustainability information in e-commerce. Let's now dive into our guidance document, and to have it a little bit more lively, we developed our 5 personas. So say hello to our online shoppers, Tom, Haya, Mikwali, Feng, and Olga. And yeah, we kind of developed them in a way that they are kind of an average online shopper with different interests also in the topic of sustainability. So some of them are more activist, so they are against greenwashing and demand stop greenwashing. Some of them just want to have an easier shopping experience, and so they want that it's easier for them to find the sustainability information. Some of them are not even interested really in sustainability, they just want a good product. And some of them are really new to the topic and also need more information and more guidance, like what sustainability is anyway with regards to products. Okay, now let's look into the principle of reliability in an e-commerce setting. So our little friend here, Tom, he wants to buy a new shirt. And he has already looked at several marketplaces and he finds several options there, and they all promote their products as sustainable. But he asks himself, where can I find the evidence for these claims? And can those claims actually be trusted? So what we demand within our guidance now is that the information that is provided must be reliable. So e-commerce platforms must verify the sustainability claims that are shown on their platform. And I give you an example for eco-labels, for instance. When Tom is looking at a shirt and it is assigned with an eco-label, then he must be sure that this product actually is allowed to display this eco-label. And what can an e-commerce platform do? So they should do a database comparison. For instance, look within their product database and look in the databases of the various certifying organizations. Let's say the database of the EU Eco-label. And then they run a comparison based on a unique product identifier, which could be an EAN code or a GTIN code. And when they find it in the certifying organizations database, then they can check, and then our friend here, Tom, he can be sure that this t-shirt is actually awarded with, let's say, the GOTS or the EU Eco-label. And what also comes into play with reliability is another principle, which we'll not further explain here, but which we also have addressed in our guidance, which is the principle of transparency. So with this principle, when this is complied with, then Tom is also able to see, okay, where's the information coming from? How was it verified? And so on. Okay, now let's jump to the next principle and to our next shopper. And I hand over to Johanna right now.
Thank you, Jan Christian. And thank you also for the nice introduction so far. So we are together looking now at the next principle, and it's the principle of relevance. And to better understand what we mean by the principle of relevance, let's look at the story of Haya, who is trying to buy a laptop. And during this process of buying a laptop, she also tries to search for sustainability attributes, and she does that by just typing keywords such as green or eco in the search field on the e-commerce platform that she's using. However, the results lists that is provided to her based on this search includes many models with sustainable packaging. Haya is a bit knowledgeable about sustainability, and she knows that when it comes to buying a laptop, sustainable packaging should not be the major qualifier for sustainability. So this is what we mean by provide relevant information. E-commerce platform must check whether highlighted claims are addressing hotspots of the product. And what is meant by sustainability hotspots, it's basically phases in the product lifecycle during which sustainability aspects become most important or most impactful. For example, for a laptop, that could be energy consumption during use, or whether the laptop has a good standby mode with low energy consumption. But certainly not the packaging has the highest impact during the lifecycle of a laptop. So the second thing that we added here would be e-commerce platforms must consider the use phase or the end of life phase as an important part of the product life cycle and address its relevance to consumers. So this again highlights the importance of really looking at the whole life cycle of a product and trying to figure out at which phases is sustainability most relevant and at which phases do changes in the way we produce this product really impact the sustainability performance of the product. And one thing that we would like to highlight here with regards to the relevance principle is that it's also closely related to the 3 dimensions of sustainability, which is one of our aspirational principles. So the 3 dimensions of sustainability are the economic, environmental, and social dimension. And those 3 dimensions should always be covered, kind of equally when you present information about product sustainability on your website. And yeah, this shows that like the 2 principles are kind of interconnected because all of the 3 dimensions have to are relevant, and sometimes relevant information is not shown on websites, which also often includes that websites only consider one of the dimensions with not looking at the other 2. And with this, yeah, exactly, I'm handing back over to my colleague who's even faster than I am for the next principle.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now let's look at Miquali. So Miquali frequently shops online at a global retailer for different product categories, from books to clothes to groceries. So he already knows that sustainable products are on offer, but he really has a hard time to find them. Even in his favorite shops, sometimes he suffers or he has problems to find them because there's no filter or dedicated shop. And even worse at platforms which he does not know or does not visit so frequently. So yeah, how is he actually supposed to find sustainable products? And this is a problem which we identified when we were looking at several e-commerce platforms, that the information on sustainability is not accessible and also not the sustainable products themselves. So what we demand is that e-commerce platforms must provide relevant sustainability information just at a simple click. They must guide customers by using sustainable product collections, for instance, and what we also think would be really helpful for those customers who maybe are not specifically looking for sustainable products is that also during web searches or during website searches, sustainable products are pushed higher in the search results. So that even by kind of coincidence, you could find those sustainable products, and yeah, that they could become a possible alternative product for your shopping experience. What we also think with this regard, when we look at a different principle, which is also kind of interconnected, is that the information on product sustainability should reach you via various channels. So via social media or via kind of a bot which is operating on the website. So another way could also be to use innovative approaches, let's say like a gamification approach, where you could discover sustainable product alternatives and discover the information, the underlying information that is there and that is available, and that also must match our principles, the general principles. Okay, so now let's jump to our next character, Feng. So I'm handing over again to Johanna.
Thank you, Jan Christian. So together with Feng, we want to have a look at the principle of behavior change and longer-term impacts. So the story is that Feng likes to shop conveniently on the internet using his favorite e-commerce platform, which often recommends him products that fit his habits. However, recently he decided that, he informed himself more about sustainability issues and now started to care more about climate change and would therefore also like to improve his shopping behavior to lower his climate impact. But the question that he poses to himself is how can he be sure that this is also reflected in his user profile and in the recommendations that he's getting? And this heads us to the principle of behavior change and long-term impact. So to enable behavior changes, e-commerce platforms should allow consumers to break free from recommendations that are only based on the search history. So what we mean by that is that in real life, it often happens that you are only shown the products that you purchased in the past. And for example, for Feng, this means that whenever he's looking for something, he would only be recommended products that do not fit his recent behavior change about climate change. And to just make it easier for him to also find the products that fit his new choices, e-commerce platforms have many different approaches. For example, e-commerce platforms could make customers aware of their own unsustainable shopping behavior and let them compare with others by using, for example, gamification approaches. Things that we consider under this point would, for example, be that you have your icon with your shopping cart that's showing how many things you purchased. But next to it, there could be also a bar that's showing how the CO2 impact of your shopping behavior. So whenever you add an item to your shopping cart, your CO2 impact would either go up or down. This would be one way of confronting people with their own shopping behavior. And the idea is that through this confrontation with their own behavior, people will actually change their behavior also in the long term. One thing that we would like to highlight here is that this principle could also be related to the principle of collaboration. For example, collaboration could be done between an e-commerce platform and another platform like Fixit. Fixit is a platform where explanations are provided how you can repair your products and extend the lifetime of your products. So if, for example, an e-commerce platform collaborates with such a website like Fixit, they could try to influence consumer behavior and have a lasting impact on how consumers use their products and actually, make the use phase more sustainable. And with this, I give back to Jan Christian for the last principle that we're presenting.
Yeah, so the last principle that we are looking at is the principle of comparability. And Olga, she wants to buy a new couch. She already has kind of the expectation that this new couch has the best sustainability performance in its category. But when she is already preparing her shopping, she is a bit lost because she's not aware or she's not sure on which basis she could compare all the different product alternatives. Some of them maybe say they are sustainable, some of them don't say it. And she's also a bit lost where to set the priorities. So what we think, like at least within one e-commerce platform, the information should be made comparable. And ideally, the information should be standardized in a way, the product sustainability information standardized in a way that it's even comparable to look at one couch at one e-commerce platform and then find the really similar specifications on another website as well, and then being able to kind of compare those two product alternatives with each other. So the information on sustainability then should be standardized. What also would be really helpful for Olga is if she could look on one platform really side by side at the product performances. So at the relevant sustainability attributes and see like at the different water footprints of one product alternative A and the second product alternative B, or the climate impact or the social implications and so forth. What also would be great in a way, and this is also related to the example that Johanna just presented, that could also be if it also would be possible not only to kind of compare different product alternatives which are kind of new products, but also look at product alternatives which are used. So let's compare like a used sofa in a good state and a new sofa and see like being aware of the avoided emissions that you receive with purchasing the refurbished product. And this would help Olga really well to make an informed choice. And yeah, we hope that our guidance leads the way into this direction. Because sometimes we already see this among platforms. So some of the cases that we presented are based on real cases, and some of them are yeah, more the aspirational ones are kind of, yeah, what would be possible or what is already tried out more into pilot phases and so on. And I hope you're curious about our specifications of the 10 principles for the e-commerce sector. And if you're also curious in the general guidelines, we recommend you checking out the general guidelines, of course, the publication, but also you also find a link for a little video to dive into those guidelines. And of course, afterwards, you could also dive into the new guidelines that will soon be published and available on our website, on the website of the One Planet Network. All right. So now I think we have talked enough, and we have a couple of, or like 2 invited speakers, and then afterwards, of course, you're also invited, you as an audience invited to yeah, share your reflections with us. But now I want to hand over to Maria Carolina Corcione Morales, Superintendent for the Consumer, Delegated Superintendent for Consumer Protection. And yeah, it's great that you're with us here today. And yeah, what do you think about this guidance? So what is your reflections? What is also your experience with greenwashing and e-commerce, and what do you expect how it should be and how it should be improved?
Thank you very much for this invitation and for giving me the opportunity to revise the guidelines with your help. The guidelines for providing product sustainability information and its 10 fundamental and aspirational principles are decisive for consumer protection agencies. One of the aspects, in one hand, that the Superintendence of Industry and Commerce of Colombia has been trying to enforce since 2014, when the national government issued one provision regarding environmental claims, is the reliability and transparency of environmental claims used in offline and online markets. So we currently have that provision. Nevertheless, as the guidelines mention, environmental claims are just one of the dimensions of sustainability. And so we still have to identify how to incorporate the other 2 dimensions into the revision we do of the claims in advertising. We, as a consumer protection agency, we have to identify the best way to educate business and consumers in this matter. Environmental claims are new to the consumer protection agency and new to business and consumers, so we still have to educate them. But how can we educate them and have tools to better do this job? As part of different international organizations, we have been working on environmental claims. For example, within ISPEN, the International Consumer Protection Enforcement Network, the Colombian Superintendence of Industry and Commerce leads the Fraud Prevention Month. And this year, we chose as the main topic of this Fraud Prevention Month the misleading environmental green claims. So we chose that topic and we used different educational strategies using the reduce, reuse, recycle, but just focusing on environmental green claims. As the guideline mentions, there are more than environmental aspects include in sustainability. So we're just focusing on environmental claims. On the other hand, within the UNCTAD, the United Nations UNCTAD Working Group on E-commerce, there's a sub-working group on misleading and unfair business practices in e-commerce. And the Colombian Superintendence of Industry and Commerce chose as the main topic for 2022 to work on misleading environmental claims in e-commerce. And while drafting the working plan, we're facing one of the problems that you identified in your presentation, and which is that we have to start by standardizing the terminology we use in this topic. Many agencies are working on the same subject in environmental claims and sustainability, but we're talking about different things at the same time. So one of the challenges we have is to start analyzing the terminology we are using to better guide other agencies that are involved in this working group. On the other hand, as another challenge we have identified and I have mentioned during these few minutes is that we're only focusing our effort in environmental claims, and sustainability, as the guideline mentions, incorporates other dimensions that we have to incorporate, and we have to start educating consumers and businesses on the whole cycle of sustainability, and not only reliability or transparency or relevance or accessibility and clarity of environmental aspects of products, because we will be missing the other aspects that are also very important. So I would like to conclude that there's work that is being done by the Superintendents of Industry and Commerce and by other international consumer protection international organizations where the Superintendents of Industry and Commerce is involved in these specific topics. And we are producing material handbooks and other guidelines. And of course, the guidelines for providing product sustainability information are going to be crucial to make our work coherent and harmonic to all agencies. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to revise the guidelines and to see how to incorporate them better in the job we're doing. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you also very much. Really interesting what you're doing, and yeah, I think we should keep in touch and see like where like both processes are going, because yeah, we are not yet finished with the process, so we now are launching the guidance for e-commerce, but the working group 1 will continue to exist, and I think it would be really interesting to have like this exchange, because yeah, we're working on the same topic, and yeah, it's always good to hear that there's already an uptake of the general guidelines in various processes, and that this becomes like the basis for providing coherent guidance in those topics, because we think it's fine to have like the tailored approach for different regions or sectors when they are based like on the same basis. So yeah, thank you very much for your little intervention here. And now we will hand over to our next invited speaker. And yeah, I saw that you also now joined. So Maciej Czaplinski. I'm sorry, I hope I pronounced it almost right, at least.
You pronounce it very well.
Okay, good to know.
Okay,
so yeah, thank you. So yeah, then yeah, go ahead.
I'm glad to be here with you. Good afternoon, good morning to everyone. I'm not going to use all my time. That's because I don't really have much to say about Poland and its practice, because we don't have much expertise in this area, and we have conducted some market research with consumers to check their what's important for them when they are taking market decisions, and apparently most people say that sustainability of products is an important issue, but in fact, when it comes to paying the price, they mostly buy the cheapest things. So what else is important? From 16,000 complaints that we got last year in the Polish Consumer Authority, there were just a few that were somehow related to sustainability claims, and none of them specifically to the sustainability claims in e-commerce. Which doesn't necessarily mean that this is not a problem in Poland. I mean, we know that we will that many traders are using and not real, maybe misleading sustainability claims when trading. But this is simply not an important issue for the consumers in Poland yet. We decided we will have to, we will like go forward as the Consumer Protection Authority, and we will anyway check and enter more into this area, even if it's not expected by the consumers. So we are looking very strongly for examples of good practice and for inspirations among other consumer protection authorities, and hence the guidelines that were showed here, presented here, are essential for us, and we will definitely use them in shaping the consumer attitudes, and not only consumers but also traders attitudes in Poland. Well, to sum up, I hope that on the next meetings I will be able to give you some more examples from our practice and from our market. So that will be it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for your perspective on this topic. And I think it's also really interesting to have like a perspective from a country where this topic is just at the beginning, because what we also try to achieve with this guidance is to have like a possibility to apply them globally, and also in various levels or stages of sustainability or commerce of sustainable products. So yeah, I think that was really interesting to see. And yeah, I think for the Polish consumer market, those principles of like innovative approaches or behavior change approaches, I think that might be interesting, because yeah, it might be interesting to find ways where you can address consumers which are not at first looking for sustainable products, but maybe are open to them, and maybe could be kind of informed in a good way what could be the positive implications of those more sustainable product alternatives. So thank you very much to both of you again. And now I'm handing over to Daniela, who will continue the moderation and also moderates the questions that we have received from the audience.
Yes, thanks, Jan Christian. Also, thanks again to Maria, Carolina, and to Mathieu for the intervention. This is really interesting insights. I had a look at a couple of questions here, and I would like to pick the one from Emma first, especially for you, Jan Christian. Have e-commerce platforms, especially those involved in these new guidelines, talked about how they will implement the guidelines? When might we see them used systematically? did companies talk about how they might have to adapt existing approaches, for example, Amazon's climate pledge?
So when we talked to those e-commerce platforms, when we conducted the interviews, we were doing this kind of groundwork. So we were asking them, like, where do you see the problem? How would you address it? And so on. So at the moment when we talked to most of them, the guidelines were not existing. One platform, they shared with us that they use the guidelines for providing product sustainability information to develop their own strategy right now and their own tools for providing product sustainability information. And they also welcome like this new specifications for the e-commerce approach. Yeah, we just had like could gather a quick feedback only on our guidance draft last week from just two of the platforms. And yeah, they were interested in applying them. Yeah, they still had to organize it internally, in which way and to what degree. So this is something, yeah, just keep following our activities, and then hopefully in a couple of weeks and months we can share more about this. Yeah, concerning like the Amazon approach on the climate pledge, if other platforms are adapting to this, well, Booking already has adapted to this. Now they also published a climate badge for their e-commerce platform. And more in general, we also see that more and more platforms are doing this verification step, including this verification step. Amazon and also other platforms, they were kind of in this regard kind of front runners, because we are aware of that, because we're also running the EU Ecolabel help desk, where we are also communicating with several e-commerce platforms, and they are really eager to compare those databases and yeah, to have like really substantiated information and verified information with regards to labels, and not only the EU Ecolabel but also other certification programs. And that is also an approach that Amazon has included in the climate pledge, and also other platforms are doing this, not only because of Amazon, but also because they think it's really important. Yeah, but it's still a minority. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I guess, Emma, I think the question is well answered. I will go to Jay's question. He actually has two questions. I will ask first, should consumers also have access to all information on the product label? A consumer would see if shopping in a bricks and mortar store, including common name of product, net quantity, dealer name and address, certification marks, such as with electronic devices, hazard symbols, instructions for use, etc.
We think yes. So we think like in the online world, it's even easier to provide this information, because on the package you only have like a limited space, and in the online world, in the online shopping platform, you could also dive deeper. So with regards also to accessibility and transparency, you even have like more possibilities to also make the information better understandable to consumers, also allow them to kind of see the whole product life cycle, see the different impacts it could have, and so on. Where we think it's critical, like when it comes really to information that is kind of included in the label itself, because there you could also have some information that is confidential. But of course, there are also consumer organizations which are demanding, okay, full transparency in everything. But as a first step, I think where you should provide at least all the information that you could have on the pack itself, and even more.
Thanks, Frank Christian. And then we have one more from Jay. Is ICPEN and OECD and other using established international standards definition on environmental claims such as ISO 14-2026?
So what I could answer, if I understand it right, your question is that that we had several different organizations in our working group when developing like this basic guidance, and also now in this remaining working group, which now developed this guidance. So we have like a broad stakeholder group, and we also looked when developing the basic guidelines for those definitions of reliability and so on. We also considered OECD guidance, for instance, and we also looked at ECPEN guidance. So we tried in like the basic guidelines because, okay, just for you to know, I was also involved in the interior guidelines back in 2015 until 17. So we also looked at various guidelines that are available nationally or internationally. And now we tried to kind of synthesize the definitions. And of course, we also looked at the relevant ISO standards for product related information. Tried to reference them at least, or also pick up their terminology where that made sense.
Okay, I have 3 more questions, but I think maybe I will go for the one from Andreas and Rodrigo, and Jan Christian, given the time, maybe you can answer them together. The first is, if all dimensions and sustainability should be covered, which standards would you suggest following for ecological, economic, and social assessment? And then Rodrigo is asking, besides Amazon Climate Pledge, what other great platform has an approach that looks at sustainability attributes?
The question that Andreas asked is really a tricky one. So particularly in those guidelines, we have like in the e-commerce guidelines, since we have built on the other guidelines, we have not looked so deep into the question of methodologies. But in the interior guidance, so the general guidance, we have looked into this. We try to find like a common denominator because I think many of you know there's this ISO 4040 LCA approach, which is maybe not suitable in every regard for consumer information as a basis, but it's a good tool for producers themselves. But then you also have like the initiative of the European Commission, the Product Environmental Footprinting Initiative, and then sectors also have their own approaches. But what we recommend in general is the hotspot assessment approach. Where you kind of look at the main impacts within one product category. And what we kind of recommend also is to make the information then also understandable for consumers, and just work with like category impacts or something like this, like to have like a classification system, maybe not to stick to the numbers because that could be misleading, like if you have like 51 kilograms of CO2 connected to one product and then you have 52 to another product, because those errors could appear just based on the selection of the scope and things like that. So actually we look at this, make it easy for consumers and don't be too detailed when coming to consumer information, like select a robust methodology, and that could be PEF, and so on. And for social assessment, this is really tricky because there I think we're really only in the beginning. So there is like this hotspots database and things like that, and there's also ongoing activity from the lifecycle initiative and so on. But we don't even have an international standard here at all. But yeah, in general, we recommend the hotspots approach, also be transparent where the approaches that the platforms or the producers should use, like where they kind of have their limitations as well. Be not misleading and lead the consumers to the main points in an easy way. And the other question was on which other platforms have an approach that looks at sustainability attributes. So for instance, also Zalando we are talked to, they also have a dedicated sustainability classification system. There they use an approach where you could, like, from your own perspective, select what topics are relevant to you. I am not 100% sure on the methodology they have selected, but they are transparent about this. So they had also conducted a study, and I guess their approach is also connected to the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. But I think I would also need to check that to be entirely sure. And then we also see other platforms that are developing their own scorecard system in the background now. Some of them are really ambitious. Some of them are, let's put it in a positive way, like more pragmatic. But within our project, we were not able to rate all the different approaches. I think that would be like a new other project to kind of classify them. What we demand is transparency about the methodologies selected, and to select reliable methodologies that are kind of accepted by academics and are already kind of road tested and robust and reliable.
Thanks a lot, Jan Christian. This was really insightful also for myself. Given the time, I really hope you enjoyed today's webinar and that you will be all able to integrate the new e-commerce guidelines in your daily work. We would be really interested in receiving any feedback you may have on the guidelines. They will be made, they should be online as of tonight. Bear with us because the upload is quite slow these days. So they will be available as of tonight on the One Planet Network. I just shared the link here. But we will also send them to all the participants after the webinar. Please also do not hesitate to share them within your networks. With this, I would like to thank you all for your participation and your interest, and please keep in touch. Have all a nice rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. It was nice. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.